Aloha, happy Sunday. It's Vinegar Science Sunday. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to break it down for you. I promised it yesterday, so it's here. Yesterday, I made a bunch of stuff. We had a whole bunch of tomatoes, we had a whole bunch of hot peppers, we had a bunch of onions, and I was like, what am I gonna do? And I know that John likes pickled onions. And since I had them, I thought, yeah, let's make some pickled onions. Escabeche is what they make in Mexico, and it's typically whatever vegetables you have on hand, onions, carrots, cauliflower, with jalapenos, vinegar, and water. So I made my version of it because I had a couple of medium-sized carrots. I cut them down 1/4 inch diagonal coins, if you can call them that, ovals. Sauteed them in a very little bit of mild oil for a couple of minutes just to soften them a little bit. Then I threw in the onions, and I also have some bell peppers and garlic in there, and as well as green onions. Added that in, let that sit in with the carrots for a couple of minutes. I threw in seasonings. A teaspoon of whole black pepper, a teaspoon of Mexican oregano, and I think maybe like 1/4 or 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. And sugar. Yes, there's some sugar in there. So there's a tablespoon of sugar and some little smidgens of salt. Really, it's salt to taste. And based on how much vegetables I had, I should have had 2 cups of white vinegar and 2 cups of water, equal. Well, I had a 1/2 cup of white vinegar, and I thought, can I sub vinegar to vinegar? Is it really that different? So I looked it up online, and actually, pickling vegetables, the best one to use is white vinegar because it's mild, because it's unflavored, because it's basic. It is just your acetic acid diluted with water. No flavorings, no herbs, nothing. It's made from just your basic grain, okay? So that's why it's best for pickling, because it's got no added flavors. That way, your pickling spices can shine through, as well as the vegetables. So what did I do? I used a substitute. I made up the difference with apple cider vinegar, because I have a ton of that on hand. I use that for the breads I make and some other baking stuff. So I use that, and that's why you can see the water is a little yellow, not so clear, because it was mostly apple cider vinegar instead of basic vinegar, but it's super ono, which is yummy, even with all those peppers in there. So that's my escabeche. After I put the vinegar and water in there, I let it sit for 5 minutes at a little boil, just to get the flavors heated through, and then I set it to cool, and then I jarred it, and we had it for dinner, and I actually had been snacking on it all afternoon. It's so ono. So that's escabeche. Back to vinegars. Vinegars start as a yeast plus a grain or fruit. That creates an alcohol, ethanol. Add bacteria to that ethanol, and you've got acetic acid, aka vinegar. Household cooking vinegar is diluted with water. This lineup is least to highest percentage of acetic acid vinegar. So my rice vinegar is 4.2, these are all 5, and this one is 6. What does that mean? It just means it's got that much more flavor or tartness, or it really depends on what kind of vinegar it is. So white vinegar, we talked about. It's just your basic unflavored vinegar. It's just a grain, and the yeast until it created the alcohol, and then bacteria, basic white vinegar. Your apple cider vinegar, your red wine vinegar, and your white wine vinegar are fruit-based. Apple cider, red wine, grape, white wine, grape. So these are fruit-based, right? Typically, your apple cider vinegar goes really good with pork dishes, like apples do, right? I also use this for baking. I've used it in breads. I've used it in a whacky cake, yes. So vinegar has Depending on what else you cook with it, vinegar at its basic is a fixing agent, right? So it stabilizes things, it emulsifies it. That's why I use vinegar in my dressing, like I did for my papaya seed dressing as one of the recipes I have on my channel. But it also replaces or can replace egg in a recipe. Aha. So this wacky cake I speak of is the vegan cake I make for our friends. And anytime I'm the one responsible for the cake, it's a wacky cake. That way I don't have to worry about it having eggs and them not liking eggs or not eating eggs. So there's a function, right? And that's apple cider vinegar. Red wine vinegar, think of it like it's a red wine base. It really is. It's based on red wine. So what do you drink red wines with? Gravy, heavy meats, like red meats. Typically, your red wine vinegars will go into things, marinades, dressings that are for heavier foods. Your white wine vinegar, just like when you drink white wine, it's good for chickens, also good for marinades and dressings, but it's lighter, it's white wine. Okay, so these are fruit-based, as is your balsamic. The difference is your balsamic is taking that red wine and it's barreling it and aging it. It can be way longer than your typical red wine vinegar. And it's typically in a barrel. It could take years sometimes. And you'll see those that when they pour them out in shows or whatever, that really super aged balsamic dressing is like one drop. They're holding it, it's like Heinz 57, right? They're holding the bottle like this and nothing coming, and then all of a sudden one drop comes out, heavy aged. Now, the thing about that is it makes it amazing. The concentrated flavor in that, and also depending on the barrels used, the flavor added to that. This rice wine vinegar, instead of being fruit based, is grain based. Rice, get it? Rice, and used, as you can tell, the fact that this is a Kikkoman bottle as opposed to these English based ones, is used heavily in Asian cooking. And I have to say I use this a lot in different recipes I have. I especially use this in my Chinese chicken salad and my and actually I've got several recipes that I use this for. So this bottle gets rotated as often as the apple cider vinegar. These not so much. It really depends. But again, this is a green one. So what else happens with vinegars? So vinegar is a fixing agent. We talked about that, right? So you can use it in your dressings in an emulsified manner, or you can use it in the place of eggs because it'll create that stabilized environment. But if you remember from your childhood, if you did it, add it to baking soda, and what do you got? A volcano. Not really. You don't have a volcano, but the baking soda added with that vinegar creates that leavening. Yes, it creates that leavening effect, and it allows for the rise of something like that wacky cake. It takes the place of an egg. It allows for the leavening. It creates the airy pockets. Actually, that's exactly what's happening in your volcano. You take that baking soda and you add that vinegar to it, and all those chemicals react and they release that carbon. It creates that bubble, that volcano. That's what's happening in your cake. It's creating those airy pockets and making it luscious and light. That's what's happening. Also, I learned in researching this that take that to the next level. Take your baking soda and your vinegar to the next level is the Maillard reaction. Yeah, Maillard. Blow my mind like you wouldn't believe. So basically what that means is it allows for quicker browning. Yeah. Once upon a time, years ago, I really thought about, my background is the restaurant business. In case you didn't know this, my very first job out of school was with a pie company, and I was one of their pie makers. Then went to Marie Callender's. Of course, everybody goes to Marie Callender's if you're into pies. I was the baker there. And then I went to a little company run by the Chart House restaurant organization that was their bakery. So all of the breads they serve at Chart Houses, like their squaw bread and stuff like that, we made, as well as cookies and things. Anyhow, I got burnt out. It's a tough job. I kid you not. The restaurant world is tough. Bless every one of you, whether you're front of house, back of house, for doing what you do, especially during COVID. Power to you. Anyhow, back then I thought, man, this is tough. I don't think I can do this. And so I got out of it. And I got into, quote, a real job and moved on in life. And even then, years later, while working in my current position, I fancied going back to school and getting a culinary degree, just because I really love cooking. I really love food. And I told one of my really, really good friends then, and her mom told her, Pauline can't go into culinary. She'll need a science degree. She's not smart. Yeah. Well, I'm smart. I took what she said to heart, and I didn't go to school, and it hurt. And I thought, yeah, I don't do science well. And I talked myself out of it. And I stayed in my current position, and I love my job. I love my coworkers. I love my clients, and what I do keeps me off the streets. But I've learned in the last 3 years since moving to the Big Island that I'm capable. I am smart. I can do science. Voila. I can do math. And I do. I cut my recipes up, down, double, quarters, what have you. I can do it. I know math. I know science. I can do culinary. And maybe I will. But I just want you to know that don't let anybody ever talk you out of your dream. You can do what you want, whether it's learning about vinegars and the Maillard reaction and leavening agents and what happens really when you add baking soda and vinegar. It's not a volcano, but it acts like a volcano. And the difference between Dutch processed cocoa and natural cocoa, whatever you want to pursue, you want to learn, do it. I believe in you. You can do it. I believe in me. That's the key. My friend's mom, she believes what she wants. I know better. And I know that what I do now makes me happy. Sharing with you everything I learned, whether or not you want to learn it, go on to the next video. I'm not holding you hostage here. But hopefully you've learned a little bit. Rice wine vinegar made from grain. Red wine, white wine, apple cider vinegar made from fruits, apples, grapes. Balsamic also. Highest concentration, lowest concentration. Sweeter because of that, right? That sourness builds up unless you're aging it for a long time. Oh, one other thing I want to talk about, black vinegar. Dude, I was looking at a recipe the other day and it was an Asian recipe. It was a noodle recipe and it called for black vinegar. And I was like, what? I've got almost every vinegar in the house. What is this black vinegar shit? So I looked it up. It's like a balsamic vinegar in that it's aged for a long period, except it's grain based. It's not red wine based, it's grain based. Most often, and it's a trip, even more learning, gonna blow your mind. So depending on where you are in Asian countries, it could be made out of bran, could be made out of rice, most times it's rice, could be made out of barley, sorghum, any of those grains, depending on what region you live and what's available to you. But basically, they take that, they make a vinegar, and then they age it. Except instead of doing it in a barrel, like the liquid red wine into balsamic, they do it in clay pots for years. And these black vinegars can be expensive, just like a really good balsamic vinegar, and just as thick. And the umami notes that come out of it, I know people use that term all the time, but basically it's that rich body. I can't even say without it. You've got to have had an umami experience to know what it is, I guess. But anyway, there is a grain version to this. It's called black vinegar. It's an aged vinegar made from grain, not in a barrel, but in a clay pot. So I had to share that. I still haven't gotten it. I did order it. You know I did. I've got to try it. I got to add to my repertoire. This was not an ad for any of these vinegars. I just wanted to share what I made, my escabeche, what I have made in the past, my whacky cake. Look it up. There are recipes. Just look up whacky cake. You'll see with red wine, apple cider vinegar, my recipes, papaya seed dressing made with vinegars. But there you have it. Have an awesome day. I love you all. Thanks for listening in, and do vinegar. No, do you. And if you need a little tartness, add vinegar.